What is going on, everybody? I'm Jiffy Nano, and today we're going to go over one of my most unique and most powerful builds that I've ever come up with, barehanded Moze. So this build is technically based around melee, which is not very common on Moze, and the mechanics are a bit complex. Complex isn't really the right word, but there's a lot of moving parts all building on top of each other. There's a couple of items that are absolutely required to make this build work, and others that just increase the efficiency of it. So I'm actually going to go over what gear you need first, since this is the more complicated part. If you want the skill trees, go to the timestamp right here, but I guarantee you this build will not do much without the specific items that I'm going to be talking about. So the two things you absolutely need to make this work is a face puncher with 150% bonus rad damage when under 50% HP, and a white elephant artifact, preferably one with a knife drain prefix. This build will work with a regular white elephant, but if you want the other parts to work, like the unlimited amp shots we're going to be talking about, you will need a knife drain version of the white elephant and a bloodletter class mod. If you don't have these things, then I would just use a class mod with as many points into Fire in the Skag Den as possible. So for the rest of the moving parts in this build, like I said, we are using a bloodletter class mod, which if you were to heal yourself, instead of your health bar, it's your shield that gets healed. You'll be looking for extra points into Desperate Measures and Phalanx Doctrine. These two skills give you a boost in damage and survivability, making your shield capacity much larger than normal. Speaking of shields, you are also going to need/want a purple amp shield, preferably one with at least 2 amp rolls in the card, the best being the one-shotter with 3 amp rolls. Legendary amp shields will work, but not nearly as well as non-legendaries. For some reason, legendary amp shields divide the amp evenly across all pellets. So if you have 100% amp and 10 pellets, each one gets 10% amp spread evenly, whereas purple shields amp each pellet individually. So those 10 pellets each get 100% of that amp damage. Now, since we're using a face puncher, which shoots melee, and using a knife drain white elephant, which heals you for melee damage dealt, you should be healing quite a bit due to mayhem scaling. But it gets better. Combine this healing with the bloodletter and amp shield. Every shot you fire that hits an enemy will be amped, and refill your shields at the same time, giving you unlimited amp shots. This idea came about a while ago when I was seeing people try to recreate the bee shield in Borderlands 3, and I think this is the closest we'll get. This didn't work up until mayhem scaling from melee happened, because the face puncher's damage just you didn't deal enough to refill the shield and deal decent enough damage with Moze. That was until Fire in the Skag Den got mayhem scaling, which brings me to the white elephant bombs. White elephant bombs damage scales depending on how hard you hit with your melee. With this amp damage plus some skills, and the 50/150 anoint, which I forgot to mention, applies to all damage you deal, melee, grenades, action skills, everything as long as you're under 50% HP. All of these damage increases make the white elephant bombs do insane amounts of damage already, and this is before Fire in the Skag Den. This is literally one of my strongest bossing builds ever, taking down even the Psycho Reaver in less than a minute. So now we're on to the skill trees. First thing you might notice is we have no capstone skills, and we really don't need them. Forge barely does anything with face puncher since its mag is only 6, short fuse doesn't proc on the face puncher, and if we're shooting enemies our shield should never break, so tenacious defense doesn't really help either. The skills we do have are for maximizing our damage with the face puncher, which is actually kind of tricky because the face puncher is a little fickle about what damage boosts it works with. Shotgun damage on comps and artifacts doesn't work, but melee and Hyperion weapon damage do. This is why I went for Desperate Measures and Click Click. Both these skills boost the damage of not just your weapons, so with a face puncher it should work just fine, along with amp and the 50/150 anoint to increase the damage of the white elephant bombs. Then we grab some of the blue tree for the bombs themselves. Fire in the Skag Den because it scales with mayhem, and Torg Cross Promotion both increase splash damage, making our white elephant bombs extremely deadly. All this, and once again we get the 150% rad damage anoint because we're under 50% health. All of this together gives us extreme damage, and as long as we're shooting enemies, very good survivability. For mayhem modifiers, you can use literally anything you want. I barely noticed there were any modifiers on at all, The only ones I don't like are roguelite and buddy system. I don't like roguelite because we're under 50% HP, so we don't get health gate, so we can get one shot fairly easily, and it's just annoying to have to just die immediately like that. I usually run post-mortem because the explosion damage that we're dealing usually kills the death ghosts before they even spawn, so it's just an easy modifier that you rarely have to deal with. This build is probably my most unique and one of my most powerful setups I've ever come up with, and it's definitely one of my favorites to farm bosses with, especially on stream, because it just deletes bosses and it blows people away when I kill a boss in 1 to 2 shots. The last video I made on this when it was level 60, I was pretty disappointed in the video. I was very proud of the build itself, but the video was pretty scuffed and I was just trying to throw it together and get it out there as soon as I could. So I'm really glad that I can now update it, have it be a little more professional, and have the quality up to the par that I like to keep it at. So if you are on PC, you can grab the save file from my Discord, link in the description. Unfortunately, my one-shotters are still level 60, and I have yet to get my hands on 65 versions. Console friends, I am sorry, but there is no way currently to get save files from PC to console, and this build does require some pretty specific gear, so I hope you can get it together. Happy farming and good luck. If you found this video informative, don't forget to like and subscribe, and comment down below what you guys think. Also, check out my Twitch channel where I test all of these builds if you guys want to take part in doing that. And I have a Patreon if you want to support me in the content that I make. All the links are in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
This is such an unnecessary process. Fire.